Have you ever stopped to wonder where the sound of modern hip-hop really comes from? I mean, yeah, we think of it as being born on the streets of New York, right? But what if I told you its roots stretch back centuries, all the way to West Africa, to a tradition of storytelling and rhythm? It's an amazing story about how an ancient voice found a brand new home inside modern technology.
Okay, let's really break this down. At its absolute core, hip-hop is this incredible, powerful fusion. So on one side, you've got the foundation, these ancient African traditions, oral storytelling, super complex rhythms. And then on the other side, you've got the tools, modern tech like turntables, mixers, and of course, digital samplers. This whole explainer is really about how these two worlds, which seem so different, came together to create one of the most influential genres in history.
To even begin to understand this, we have to go back, way back. Long before the first MC ever touched a microphone, there were the griots of West Africa. You could call them the original rappers.
So what exactly is a griot? First off, it's pronounced griot. And a griot is, well, they're a West African historian, a storyteller, a poet, and a musician, all rolled into one. Think of them as the living, breathing memory of their people, the living archive of their community. Their job was to preserve and pass down history all through the power of the spoken word.
And just look at the scope of what they did. It's incredible. Griots were so much more than just entertainers. They were the ones who kept the history straight, they were masters of poetry and rhythm, they knew all the family trees and all the traditions. They were even counselors and spiritual guides, and they often played instruments, like the kora, to go with their stories. They were absolutely central to the life of their community.
This right here, this is like the musical DNA that connects the griot to the modern rapper. It's a technique called call and response. You know, where a leader says or sings a phrase and a group answers back. This fundamental piece of black music, this building block, actually survived the transatlantic journey. You hear it in gospel, you hear it in funk, and yup, it became a core part of hip-hop.
Okay, so let's fast forward. How did this ancient voice find a totally new sound in 20th century America? Well, there was a really important stop along the way.
This timeline lays it all out. You have the griot traditions from West Africa evolving over centuries. Then in the 1960s, you get Jamaican sound system culture where DJs started toasting, basically talking or chanting over instrumental tracks. Well, that tradition traveled to New York with immigrants like a guy named DJ Kool Herc. And then, on one specific night, August 11, 1973, everything changed.
This was it. This was Kool Herc's big eureka moment. He's spinning these hard funk records, right? And he sees that the energy on the dance floor just explodes during the instrumental drum breaks. The crowd absolutely loved that raw, percussive rhythm more than any other part of the song. He had found the heart of the beat.
So what did he do? This was an act of pure genius. He gets two turntables, puts two copies of the same record on them, and he just isolates and extends those breaks. He'd switch back and forth between the records, creating what he called the merry-go-round, just an endless loop of the best part of the song. The breakbeat was born, and with it, the foundation of hip-hop was laid.
But Herc's technique, it was live, it was hands-on. That was just the beginning. The next big evolution happened when technology took that same idea and turned it into a whole new art form. The recording studio, that was the next frontier.
And there were two machines in particular that became absolute legends. First, you had the EMU SP1200. This thing was known for its raw, gritty, boom-bap sound. Its technical limitations, well, they actually became its greatest creative strength. And then there was the Akai MPC60. This was more like a musical instrument. It had these 16 pads that made sampling and beat-making feel like a real performance.
So, what was the secret sauce behind the sound of these machines? It all came down to their bit depth, 12-bit. This was an era before high-res was the goal for everything. This lower resolution actually gave the samples a really unique character. It added this punchy, warm texture, a kind of sonic grit that producers just fell in love with. It wasn't a flaw, it was the sound.
And this chart really breaks down the differences. I mean, they were both 12-bit, but look at the sample time. The SB1200 only had about 10 seconds. That forced producers to get incredibly creative. The MPC60 gave you more time and was all about that groove and playability. And just look at the legends who used each one. Pete Rock and DJ Premier on the SB, DJ Shadow and Jay Dilla on the MPC.
So how do they actually use these things? Well, the process itself was an art form. It all started with crate digging, just hunting through piles of old vinyl for that perfect sound.
Then you'd sample a little piece of it, chop it up into individual sounds, like a single kick drum or a snare hit, and then you'd rearrange those sounds on the pads to build a completely new rhythm. You were literally making new music out of old sounds.
And some producers, man, they push the technology in ways no one ever expected. The legend, Jay Dilla, he famously turned off the MPC's automatic timing correction, the quantize feature. And what that did was it gave his beats this human, kind of off-kilter, behind-the-beat feel. Questlove described it perfectly with this quote, but he was so blown away by that drunken rhythm that it literally changed the way he played the drums.
Okay, so this is where the whole journey, which started in Africa and was forged in the Bronx, comes full circle. The music traveled back across the Atlantic, creating this amazing cultural feedback loop.
You can see hip-hop's global impact so clearly here. In Senegal, artists started using rap to talk about social issues, but in their own languages. In South Africa, they blended it with local music to create Kwaito, which became the soundtrack for post-apartheid life. And in Nigeria, early pioneers took its influence and laid the foundation for what would become the global force we now know as Afrobeats. So in the end, hip-hop is so much more than just a genre of music. It's really a testament to cultural resilience and creativity. It's this powerful, unbroken line connecting the oral poetry of a West African griot centuries ago to a producer making beats in their bedroom studio today. The tools have changed, for sure, but the rhythm and the story, they just keep going.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, right? When you look at this incredible journey, it makes you wonder, what ancient traditions are being rediscovered right now? And what new technologies are they fusing with to create the music of our future?